This original WSRE presentation is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
Country music singer-songwriter Ronnie McDowell on this edition of Conversations. I'm Jeff Weeks. Thank you for deciding to spend some time with us. We have a very special guest with us today, country music's Ronnie McDowell. Welcome, sir.
Live and in color with my red Valentine shirt on.
In high definition, it jumps out at you. Welcome to the program. It's great to have you on.
Thank you, Jeff. It's good to be here.
Just a little personal story here. We were talking off air, but I used to, when I first started the broadcasting business back in the 1980s, and I was in high school and played a bunch of your records, Girls Gone By and Older Women and all that good stuff.
Well, thank you. You know, watching Girls Go By, since you said that, has now been played over 1 million times. Wow. And since I wrote it, the beauty of that is when it reaches the millionaire play, I don't know if you know this or not, but your royalties triple.
You got to like that.
Yeah.
Spin it up. Yeah. That was still back in the old days we played records. People don't know what those are anymore. Take me back. How did you first get in the music industry?
Well, I actually got in, I was in Vietnam. I'm a combat veteran, 1968, 69, and 72. And while I was there, started writing songs in my teen years. And believe it or not, I still have some of the first songs I ever wrote. And I mean, they were pretty bad. You know, writing songs became a process of learning through the years. And as I've done that through the years, I feel like I've gotten better. And so that's how I actually got into the business as a songwriter. In 72, my first song, I never will forget, I was driving down the road one afternoon. You remember the Friday Night Frolic on the Grand Ole Opry? They don't do that anymore, but I was listening to the Friday Night Frolic, and lo and behold, I heard this piano riff, and I thought, I know that. What is that? Roy Drusky, unbeknownst to me, had recorded a song that I had written called Deep in the Heart of Dixie. Dixie was a girl. And he started singing my song on the Grand Ole Opry. I literally pulled off on the side of the road, and it really like shook my whole world. I got out of the car and did a rain dance around the car. I couldn't believe I was hearing not only Roy Drusky, who I loved his songs and his voice, singing my song. So that was one of the biggest thrills I ever had.
Oh, I can imagine.
And then I went on to, you know, having songs recorded by Porter Wagner, Billy Walker, Gene Shepard, the Wilburn Brothers. And you got to remember, in the early 70s, these guys were still having hit records.
Right.
Roy Drusky, when he did my song, had just come off of Look Yonder, There Comes Jody and the Kid, a #1 record. So that kind of kicked my career off. And then, of course, Elvis passed away in 77. And I was driving down the road again in my 77 Camaro. I had just rehearsed with my band. And the irony of that is, I had just rehearsed Return to Sender. I told the boys, then again, you got to remember, Elvis was having hit records then.
Oh, yeah.
So he was like really still powerful on the charts. So I said, let's not do Moody Blue, which was his record out. I said, let's do one of his older songs. So we rehearsed to Return to Sender, and after we got through, I got in my car, and I was driving down the road, turned the radio on, said Elvis Presley just passed away. I mean, I was like the biggest Elvis fan that ever lived, still am. And that really, really got to me. And every station that I turned it to, it didn't matter if it was rock, talk radio, sport, they were all talking about Elvis's passing. And all these words in my thoughts started coming to me like I was barely 6 years old when I first heard him sing. And somehow I knew it'd be a lifetime thing. And I thought to myself, what is this? In 15 minutes down the road, I had every bit of that road. And I knew that I had something. So the next morning, I got in my car, flew to Memphis. I had never laid eyes on Elvis. So I thought, dadgummit, if I ain't seen him alive, I'm going to see him that way.
Right.
And so I stood in line at 8:30 in the morning. I got to Memphis. And it was so hot, I never will forget. But already at 8:30 in the morning, it was 5 abreast people. It was like military. Then there was police everywhere. And it was like for miles. See, the media really played that down. That was the most unbelievable thing that I'd ever witnessed. Because I stood in line from 8:30 to 5:30, and I got as far from here to that curtain over there. They shut the gate.
Oh, no.
I didn't get in. And I mean, people started rioting. I mean, they were shaking that gate, climbing over it, and I thought, I'm out of here. So I get back to Nashville that afternoon. It was late. But there was a guy standing in the Scorpion Records office where I was a songwriter at the time. And he said, Ronnie, let's do a tribute to Elvis. And I said, man, I ain't wearing no jumpsuit. He said, no, that's not what I mean. He said, listen to these words. Listen to this song I've written. I did. And I said, well, man, listen to what I wrote yesterday. And so what we did, we took my talking part, put it on the front of what he wrote, and that was the song. 2 days later, the next day, that was Wednesday, August 17th. The next day, we went into a studio on Music Row, which I didn't know at the time was Scotty Moore's studio, Elvis Presley's guitar player.
Okay.
From the 50s and 60s. And so we went in, we recorded The King Is Gone, and I was singing it like Ronnie McDowell. And this guy that helped me write it, Lee Morgan, who has since passed away, he walked up to me, he said, Ronnie, said, you need to sound like Elvis when you do this song. And I said, why do I want to do that? I want to sound like me. He goes, I've heard you sing an Elvis song in your show, and when you do, you sound a little like him. I said, well, I do Marty Robbins and Johnny Cash and Ernest Tubb. Yeah, but you need to do Elvis. And so therefore I did. And it was kind of like a blessing and a curse because everybody thought I was an Elvis impersonator.
Right.
So I didn't wear a jumpsuit, but everybody said, well, oh, even today, if you mention my name, oh, you're the guy that does Elvis. It's like they don't care about older women, or it's like when you do something that is so huge
right.
initially, then they have a tendency it's a stigma, and you live with it. But that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay because, I'm Elvis's biggest fan, and I love that. But I also, had my own career with older women, and like you say, watching girls go by, you're going to ruin a bad reputation. And so I had the most wonderful career, and I still am having a blessed, wonderful time with my career.
How many records did The King Is Gone sell?
To date, over 6 million.
6 million.
Yes.
Incredible. I think it's also interesting, you obviously were pretty good at doing Elvis because how many movies and television shows have you been the voice of for Elvis?
Well, I did The King Is Gone on American Bandstand with Dick Clark. And I never will forget that because Dick walked up to me and he got right in front of my face and his lips were quivering. And I was like petrified even to be there.
Right.
You got to remember 2 weeks later, I was working in a club in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Now I'm on American Bandstand, scared to death. And I looked at him and I thought, man, if he's scared, I'm going to die right here. But I made, now that I look at that clip on YouTube, on American Bandstand, it looks like I was in total control. But I was actually like scared to death. But I made it through it like I did the first time I did the Opry.
Yeah.
I did the Opry one night after The King Is Gone.
Oh, wow.
Jim Ed Brown, he put his arm around me. He said, son, you'll be fine. I said, Mr. Brown, I said, I'm not scared to go out and sing the song. I said, I just wrote it 2 days ago. I don't even know the song. He goes, yeah, I believe I'd be scared too. I thought, thanks a lot. But I went out and I did it on cue, never missed a word. So, and then after that, Dick Clark called me. It wasn't that long after that, and he said, I'm doing a movie starring Kurt Russell. He's going to be playing Elvis Presley. I said, Dick, you got to be kidding me. That guy that's on the Disney movies, I said, he don't look nothing like Elvis. He said, let me send you his screen test. He did, blew me away. I still didn't want to do it because I was stereotyped with that, right. And I wanted to get away from that. And I said, Dick, I explained that to him. He said, Ronnie, he said, we've went through all of these tapes of these Elvis sound-alikes, and we don't want nobody but you doing it. I said, well, Dick, I said, I really don't want to do that. And he said, well, what would it take for you to do it? I said, well, what are you offering? I said, when do you want me out there? After he told me.
After he told you what he was offering.
I said, now, when do you want me? And so I went out and I said, now here's the deal. I said, I'm going to do this, but I don't want my name on the credits. He said, that's fine. And so that's the way we did it. But now, it just came out this week on DVD for the first time in 30 years, the Kurt Russell movie. And I sat down and did an interview, Kurt Russell and me and John Carpenter, and we, just like you and I are talking, we talked about the movie, which was cool, and that's included in the new video. So I've done 12 movies now. Just did a new one called Elvis Close as a Brother. 29 commercials and a Twilight Zone episode. And I still get a check from the Twilight Zone episode. And I love that episode of that. It's a guy driving down the road. He picks up a hitchhiker in an old truck, and the hitchhiker's Elvis.
Oh, wow.
It's a cool episode.
Oh, I bet.
So I was glad to be a part of that.
What's your favorite Elvis song to perform?
You know, I can answer that real quick, and the reason why is because it's Elvis's favorite. He had two favorite songs, and ironically, those are my two favorite. Don't Be Cruel and It's Now or Never were his two favorite songs and my two favorite.
To sing, what's the most difficult Elvis song to sing?
I can answer that real quick. I had to perform with the Memphis Symphony. I had to do for Elvis's 50th birthday, or 60th. And I had to do If I Can Dream, the thing he did on the '69 comeback special. That is a tough song to sing because it's real gut-wrenching and hard to sing, and that's probably the toughest one. That and Jailhouse Rock.
Jailhouse Rock?
That's a hard song. That song was so hard for Elvis, as a matter of fact, that he did half the song, went to eat lunch, come back and did the other half.
No kidding.
Even back then.
Wow.
That was a tough song.
What was it, Ronnie, about Elvis Presley? I mean, obviously he was a great singer and he had, you know, a wonderful magnetism about, but he captured the American, really the global music industry like nobody else really ever has. What was it about him?
You know, a lot of people ask me that, and I'm not really sure that the mystery of Elvis Presley will ever be solved. I try to analyze that all the time. This last Christmas, I was signing some of my paintings. I do paintings. And a lot of them that I've done are about Elvis. And I had one of them laying on this table. This little kindergarten girl come through the line. And to me, this sums up it all. And I just out of the blue, I said, who is that? And I put my finger on Elvis's head, and she looks down, she goes, it's Elvis, who you think it is? I'm like, how do kids know that? You can go into any second grade class in America, I promise you, and you can hold up a picture of George Bush, and they won't have a clue. But you hold up Elvis Presley's mug, face, and they know who it is. Now explain that to me.
I know exactly. I have an 8-year-old, and she knows who Elvis is and loves to hear him sing. Let me talk to you about your painting, because that's really, really neat. And I had no idea until I started researching the show that you were a painter. And I have to say, you're a pretty good one at that, too.
Well, thank you.
You have this painting. Is it called Elvis and Me? Is that what it is?
No, it's a reflection of a king.
Tell us about that.
And what it is, it's Elvis at 10 years old looking in the mirror in the old house he was born in. And he sees his future looking back at him. And to me, that was my favorite all-time painting until my two newest ones. I'll tell you about those. But the one you're talking about now hangs in Graceland.
Okay.
It hangs in the old house Elvis was born in. And it's on the front cover of a new book. I'm now an author, and it's been out 8 months, and it's called The Genuine Elvis. It's already over 50,000 copies. And that's why I say the mystery of Elvis just goes on and on and on. I'm not really sure, like I say, that will ever be solved. I don't know if it was Elvis's humility, if it was, of course, you know, nobody ever looked like Elvis. No. I've never seen in my lifetime, just to put that in perspective, Tony Curtis walked up to Elvis in 1957 on the Paramount lot. In 1957, Tony Curtis was a great-looking human.
Right.
Who was Elvis's idol. He literally walked up to Elvis Presley. George Klein told me this. he said, I was standing beside Elvis, and he said, Tony walked up to Elvis, and he said, Elvis, you about the handsomest human I've ever seen. Now, is that not saying something?
That's saying something.
So that little boy from Mississippi, I swear, that is amazing what he did and is still doing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was in Walgreens yesterday. They've got Beanie Babies now, Elvis Beanie Babies. And I thought to myself, you know, that is amazing. You don't see that for Frank Sinatra.
No.
You don't see that for no other human. Maybe Marilyn Monroe and James Dean and John Wayne and some things, but primarily it's Elvis.
It's incredible. Let me go back to your painting.
Yeah.
How did you become a painter? How did that come about?
In 1956, I painted a big old red fire engine from a school teacher, and I kind of knew my mind's eye could do that. So there and then again, I've kind of, you know, grown with it like songwriting, and I've learned, never had a lesson. But my newest painting is my favorite.
Okay.
My two newest ones. And Christmas Day, I went to George Jones' house, and I gave him the original. And what it was, they called and asked me to do it. I was so honored because I am the world's biggest George Jones fan. There's no bigger fan, and I told him that. And it's George Jones on a John Deere lawnmower getting a DUI. And I can't wait till you see this painting. And I had a bottle of Jack Daniels in the cup holder because this is a true statement. I mean, it happened.
Tell the story for
Well,
those who
George
don't know.
actually was drinking a lot and got some DUIs, so his wife took the keys away, Tammy Wynette. She literally took all of his keys. So George looked out the window one day and he saw his riding lawnmower and he went, So he went to the liquor store, and by the time he got back, he was drunker than a skunk, going all over the road. They pulled him over, and I mean, George was raised, throwing a fit, and I ain't drunk. Well, he was drunker than a skunk. And I said, George, I said, what were you drinking that day? I said, now, if you'll notice in the painting, I put a bottle of Jack Daniels in the cup holder. He said, why, son, he said, I was probably drinking a little of all of it. So that was my favorite painting until my newest one, which I just finished Monday.
And what is that?
I'm going to go ahead and tell you, and it's kind of a secret because, but I'll go ahead and tell you anyway. It's Oprah Winfrey at 7 years old in her bedroom, pretending that she is interviewing corncob dolls. A lot of people don't know she did that. And in the mirror, she is sitting there interviewing somebody today. And it's called Reflection of a Talk Show Queen. She has no clue. But I'm going to go on the show and give her the original. And so I'm so excited about this because to the right of the mirror, in her dresser, by the way, that she had in '62, a lot of research to do this painting. All of my paintings are like complicated jigsaw puzzles because there is no photograph of this. But that is my favorite painting because it really touches me, and it will touch you when you see it. The George Jones thing is funny, but it's true. But this new painting of Oprah is so heart-touching because it's called Reflection of a Talk Show Queen. And to the right of her mirror is Martin Luther King looking up at her in the mirror as she is. To the left of the mirror is her paternal grandmother who taught her to read and write. And on the dresser, in 1962, her dresser was a little photograph. Who do you think it would be?
1962,
John Kennedy.
John Kennedy. Yeah.
She loved John Kennedy. And so in this painting is in the same little white frame is that same picture of Kennedy, and his face is about that big. And I had to get a magnifying glass that big, and for a solid day it took me just to get John Kennedy's face to look like John Kennedy. But I did, I got it. And so I'm so proud of this painting.
Who influenced you from painting standpoint, from an artistic standpoint?
I can tell you that in a heartbeat. Norman Rockwell. I'm the biggest Norman Rockwell fan. And then I love Thomas Kincaid's work. I do. I have a lot of people. David Wright, a friend of mine that I've got to know, I love his work. So I infuse all of these things together into my work. You know, all these influences, just like songwriting and singing. I do the same thing. And so that right side of the brain, that artistic thing, you know, a painting is the same thing. You reach the heart through the eyes. Mm-hmm. A song through the ears. You get to the heart. So it's kind of like the same thing.
Interesting. What's your inspiration for this stuff? How do you come up with a song to write or a painting? What is it that sparks off in Ronnie McDowell's head?
You know, I think that is a divine thing. I really do. I think that songs, ideas come to songwriters, and paintings, ideas. There and then again, a song idea comes to you. Just say, well, you know, While the King Is Gone came to me. Watching Girls came to me one night on a rainy night. I got out some of my old records. And you remember the old song, I'm a girl watcher, I'm a girl watcher. What's the next line?
I don't know.
Watching girls go by.
Okay.
I just lifted that out of there. And that's how I wrote that song. And so I can't take credit for the George Jones painting. That was a friend of mine, Bobby Voyles in Memphis. He said, Ronnie, you need to paint a picture of George getting a DUI. I thought that was the silliest thing I'd ever heard. And then George Jones and Nancy called me and said they wanted me to paint that. And then when they did, I went, what a great idea. Yeah. The Oprah Winfrey painting, a friend of mine, George Dickerson in Texas. He said, Ronnie, we need to get you back on the national stage. Well, he's a promoter. He books me in Texas. I said, well, George, just how do you propose to do that? He proceeded to tell me about this painting. I said, George, I said, let me tell you something. I usually come up with these ideas for paintings and songs. And I said, but that is probably the best idea I've ever heard for a painting. And I kind of come up with a reflection thing, Elvis in the mirror. And now I've kind of graduated, and the Oprah painting is my favorite all-time painting. I'm getting ready to do Michael Jackson in a dressing room. Now think about this, as the Jackson 5, the way he looked. You know, the little bell bottoms, the vest, the big old hairdo, looking in the mirror, and he sees his future, the Thriller Michael Jackson. And they're both doing in the same pose. And so I'm going to call that The Man in the Mirror. You know, the song he did. Yeah. So, and then I'm going to do Jerry Lee Lewis. They called and wanted me to do him. As a little boy in overalls on an old piano in an old rundown house that he grew up in Friars Point, Mississippi. And in the mirror, you see Jerry Lee Lewis in 1956 setting that piano on fire. And I'm going to call that one Great Balls of Fire.
That's great.
So I'm so excited about doing these paintings.
You have a whole new career with this painting.
You know, I literally do. And the reason why is because I made more money off that Reflection of a King, because that is sanctioned by Graceland.
Okay.
That is worldwide. It is on the front cover of that book. And I have a print, RonnieMcDowellPrints.com. And I have made more money off of that than I have records, because all I've got in that is my time. See, there's nobody else involved. And the George Jones painting is going to be huge. I mean, I'm getting requests for that. The prints are going to be available not till next week. I have been flooded with people wanting to buy that print. It is amazing how many fans George Jones has.
Oh, yeah.
So when I get on Oprah and wouldn't you like to be there when I unveil that and she sees that? I don't want her to see it till I unveil it and she sees that. I can't wait to see the look on her face, because, you know, that's her formative years.
Right.
Of sitting there interviewing corncob dolls, pretending. And right beside her is a 1962 McCall's magazine with Elizabeth Taylor on the front cover. Yeah. That took me forever to get that right, but I got it. And she always wanted to interview Elizabeth Taylor. And when she did, she thought it was the strangest interview she ever did.
She is a great story. I'm getting a little short on time here, but I want you to tell me, I know you're involved in some charitable endeavors. Tell me about the cancer foundation you have.
Well, of all the things that I'm proud of, my children, first of all, that being second, my Cancer Foundation for Children. Because I went to St. Jude's, and I think everybody on the planet ought to go through there, because you're talking about something that'll get to your soul.
Oh, yeah.
It'll go beyond your heart. It'll get to your soul. And I never will forget, there was a little baby's picture there with his dad hanging up down there, and his name was Ben. He was 2, and I asked the lady there, I said, what is his story? She said, well, she said, Ben was 2. He came down here, had a tumor on top of his brain. She said they would literally, the doctors would operate on him while he was awake. They would work on him. And when they would get through, the doctors and the nurses knew it was killing him, but he never cried. And when they would get through, he would say thank you. The doctors and the nurses would go into their other rooms and just bawl like babies. Well, it devastated me. Mm-hmm. And so I formed this Cancer Foundation 7 years ago for children with cancer. We help families with children who have cancer. We don't give them money, but we help pay their bills. And last December, we gave $10,000 to St. Jude's, $5,000 to Vanderbilt. I collect money at my shows all year, and that's what we do. And it's a very rewarding thing. I'm helping a little girl right now, Michaela, up in Versailles, Kentucky. She wasn't supposed to live past last January. She's still living. She calls me up and she goes, Ronnie, you still my man? And I say, Michaela, I'm always going to be your man.
That's great.
And I wouldn't take nothing for that.
And you have a website if someone wants to?
Ronnie McDowell Cancer Foundation, yes.
Okay, very good. Well, you're doing an awful lot of amazing things.
Well, jack of all trades and master of none. The Lord has blessed me to do a lot of things and continues, excuse me, to bless me, and I'm still having fun doing what I do, and I just love, the creative process of painting and songwriting. I'm still writing songs for other artists.
Good deal. You're going to have to come back and see us again.
And I hope I haven't talked your head off.
We thoroughly enjoyed it. It's worth every minute of it. Ronnie McDowell was a real pleasure.
Thank you, buddy.
He's a singer, he's a songwriter, he's an artist. Ronnie McDowell, great story. Appreciate him spending some time with us on this edition of Conversations. And most of all, we appreciate you watching. I'm Jeff Weeks. Take very good care of yourself, and we will see you soon. And by the way, we're on the web at WSRE.org/conversations and also on Facebook. Take care. Great job, man.